I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, June the 2nd, brought to you in part by Zoetis, an American embarrassment. And it's not the protesting. The protesting is mostly over with and done by the time the rioting and the pillaging and the looting comes about. But if it doesn't embarrass you as an American, I'm not sure that you wear your patriotism on your sleeve like I do, but it's terrible to watch all these big cities, and it's happening in almost every major city. And these mobs are just taking over, and they refuse to let the police force use their force to end it or stop it. It's kind of like Vietnam. You know, if you're going to fight a war, you're going to try to put some force up, you've got to use it all. You've got to stop it. You don't let them, throw a rock at you or break a window and just keep letting them do stuff and do more stuff until finally they're just cleaning out a business and then setting it on fire, and you're sitting there watching them do that. But it's unbelievable. I got a message from a friend of mine named Ken McDonald from up in Canada. He comes from Indian Head, Saskatchewan, and some of you guys probably know him. He's an auctioneer up there and a cattleman, and I've met him on a couple of my trips up to Canada to judge some auctioneer contests and to compete in them. And he's just one of those real decent guys. He's just a nice guy as you ever want to meet or be around. He never has a bad thing to say about anybody. And just you're always glad to see him when you do see him. But he sent me a message today, and we don't send messages often, but it's not uncommon that we would. But he sent me a message, and it was a meme, and you guys know what those are, and it was a forwarded one that he had gotten from somewhere else. But it said, "I bet Canada feels like they live in the apartment above the meth lab." And if anybody else would have sent it to me, it would have kind of ticked me off a little bit. But I tell you what, when he sent that to me and he says, "Are you feeling this way?" And I knew what he meant, and he meant it in the best possible way, and it just embarrassed me. And he's right. I tell you what we've let people do to us, and the populations of us, all the normal people, we just let everybody else dictate to us what we're going to do. You know, we let the authorities tell us that we can't go to restaurants and eat. We let we can't go into a bar. We can't have a gathering. We can't go have sporting events and things like that. But then when the mobs take over, they can just do whatever they want. And nobody worries too much about this coronavirus deal. And the mobs just dictate to us what we will take then, too. And I tell you what, we're just getting about sick and tired of taking it. I don't know if the rest of you guys are getting that way or not, but we've got to take this country back. It's embarrassing what we're doing. It's embarrassing what we're doing out here in normal society. And likewise, it's embarrassing what's happening to this cattle business and this cattle industry that we love. We've got just a few outfits dictating to us what's going to happen, the way it's going to happen, that they totally influence the big associations that the masses are paying for and paying all the utilities and all the expenses for. But we've got just a few outfits that are railroading us the way that we're going to do it. And we try to raise up and try to do something the right way and say, we need to kind of get some control back on this thing, get some competition back in it. It's marketing, and competition is a major part of marketing. We've got to have some price discovery here because too much of our country and the salt of the earth of this country, your rural areas, your small towns, too much of them depend on it, yet we can't seem to get anything going. And now, I don't know if you guys are getting this way, but I feel like our irons are getting cold now. If you've ever tried to brand with wet or cold branding irons, it's not much fun, and that's where I feel like we're getting to the point of now. And now that we're not talking about the coronavirus, which is kind of satisfying actually to listen to something besides that. If it wasn't this putrid looting and rioting going on, anything would be better than the coronavirus. But I tell you what, now that we're not on that anymore, nobody's talking about our pandemic, nobody's talking about our beef gouging, and nobody's concerned about keeping the plants open anymore. And amazingly, while nobody's talking about it, they're getting almost back to normal. So just, take that for what it is. And I'm the last person that needs to dictate about this kind of stuff, because I'm not very politically correct, but I feel like most of you guys feel about the same way I do. And I feel like that guy in Tulsa driving that purple or maroon mega cab Dodge pickup pulling the horse trailer. I feel about like him right now, and I think like the rest of you guys do too. But let's look at the board for Monday. June live cattle futures down $1.42 at 98.30. August was down 62 cents at 98.97. You go on out from there, and they range from down a nickel to up 145. So we saw that our nearbys were lower and our out fronts were higher. And I'm wondering what in the world they're thinking with our nearbys, June and August both, and they're both fairly close, being that much lower. Last week our established market was $1.20, so we were going to have a $20 basis. Well, we've had a little bit of trade already this week at $1.18, so I guess we're going to just maintain the $20 basis. Is that as close as our futures can get? Is 20 bucks? Hey, we're in June, guys. We're in the spot month. We've just got a few weeks to go here, but my gosh, you'd think they would converge closer than that. August feeder cattle up 77 cents at 136.12. September up $1.45, 137.20. And you go on out from there, and they were from 175 higher to 227 lower, but our up close traded months there on the feeder cattle, fairly sharply higher, and it makes no fundamental sense at all. But nothing's making any fundamental sense right now. Show you what these packers do. They've gone for the last 20 years, and they haven't hardly bought any negotiated cash cattle at all, and it's just gotten progressively lighter, and they're getting almost all their needs filled with the formula. We go through this pandemic, we get in a crisis here, we've got cattle backed up, and all of a sudden they're buying cattle negotiated cash. And I don't think it's all because they're trying to show good faith for the investigators. I think they're just doing it just to save a penny here or there. And that's what they're doing. They're leaving their corporate formula partners, they're leaving them hanging. But look at this weighted average on last week's negotiated cash sale in your 5-area feeding region, 97,900 head. That's an impressive movement. We would be happy with that kind of movement during normal times for the most part. You compare that 97,900 to last week when we had 66,200 head, which is still pretty impressive, being that we're not slaughtering as many as normal, but we're getting there. But 97,900 this past week compared to the same week a year ago when they just had 85,700 head under normal conditions. But you look at the weighted average for last week's cash sales live, 108 to 120 in your 5-area feeding region. The weighted average was 115.71. That was $1.35 lower than the previous week. And you think, gosh, they were selling so good. No, they're not selling that much at the 120. There's a lot of cattle at 110 there. And late in the week, you could not get 120 anymore. And so we're starting to fade back. And I'm not sure how long these packers are going to continue this artificial market and holding things up that way. Because as these box beef values continue to plunge, their formula cattle will get more affordable eventually, and then they'll start just picking up all those and likely won't buy any cash cattle to speak of. But dressed cash sales, steers and heifers, 174 to 190, with a weighted average price on dressed basis steers at 183.83, down just 2 cents a hundredweight. So that was steady. But nationwide, look at this, 119,700 head of negotiated cash sales last week nationwide. Compare that to 83,500 the previous week and just 101,400 the same week a year ago. Only 6% of those 119,700 nationwide were for the 2 to 4 week delivery. Most of them all for right away, for current delivery within the next 14 days. And you think, well, these packing plants are so backed up, they got to take those cattle. They don't have the option of just letting them hang and hang and hang in the feed yard like they do those formula cattle. They got to take those. If they don't take them within the 14 days, they get to weigh them up, beg for a pen, and feed them cattle themselves or on their dime. And they're picking those cattle up, but they're just leaving these big formula corporate yards hanging with these heavy big cattle that are getting up there in weight, 1,800 pounds, a lot of them. Another interesting thing is not last week, but the previous week, we saw negotiated grid movement explode to the largest that I've ever seen at 66,300 head. This past week, hardly none. 8,700 head, about like they were doing before. Just a few percentage points of the total volume, hardly anything. And you think, what in the world is going on there? Well, those cattle have been on feed a while. I imagine there was more primes in there than they figured. They negotiated a price, probably didn't like the premiums they were having to pay on that, and decided to back way off of them, and likely going to pull several more formula cattle this week and maybe give some of those guys a little relief on their big heavy cattle there. But it's weird. We're never going to know what goes on in those boardrooms and where all the decisions are made on those packing plants, and they don't want us to know. And their corporate feeder partners, they don't want us to know what's in the formulas. And so we're kind of out here running blind and being idiots and establishing a brace price for them, which they abuse, and abuse the whole rest of the industry with it. But box beef cutout values plunging, and we knew they would. They had to. Whenever you spike them up there for no apparent reason other than the fact that you can, they're going to fall back just as fast. But choice cuts on Monday, 341.15 down 22.19. Selects 316.83 down $23.24, and continued good movement of 166 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Was looking at some things on Monday there and saw that some of your other countries have been benefiting, their beef producers have been benefiting from the gouging that the American plants did, because we drove the price up so high in this country for beef that your other export beef countries were enjoying it, and namely Australia was. And the hell of it is, most all your packing plants in those countries are, guess what, the same ones that they have here. So not only were they gouging in this country and getting all-time record profits, they were also doing it in other countries. It was just lagging a little bit behind whenever your global market realized the higher prices and the sticker shock. But I tell you what, it's just criminal, about like some of these bunches that are breaking the glass windows and going in and stealing these people blind during these riots. But just unbelievable. Your slaughter is expected to be near 630,000 this week. That's normal, guys. And so just cross your fingers, hope we don't have any more outbreaks. They've just about went in and tested everybody in every plant now. That's how come you saw the big spikes in the central cities that had big packing plants like Amarillo and places like that, Dodge City. You saw a lot of big spike in the number of positives. Well, they were testing everybody, and that's why there were so many positives there. But just hope and pray we keep these plants open. 630,000, we're not gaining anything on them right there, but we are at least keeping up, and we're not having a growing deficit anymore. So that's a great thing. Let's talk about your feeder cattle markets. I want to mention they're going to have a good run of yearling feeders at Bluegrass Stockyards in Lexington, their flagship location there on that beautiful new facility. They got a female producer bringing in 7 loads, mostly black all grass yearlings in one whack. And I tell you what, I'm not sure, they'll probably offer them up in pot loads, but 7 loads of them, and talked to Jim Akers, and he said they're green, and they'll be the right kind. You don't see that happen very many places very often. But Bluegrass Stockyards in Lexington here on Tuesday. Let's look at your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Monday. 128.64, down $1.26. So a lot of our prices were higher, but as we saw, they were higher compared to 2 weeks ago, because you remember we didn't have a Monday sale last week. So your prices were called higher in your auction markets, but they likely were not as high as our late week sales last week. They were just higher than 2 weeks ago, because we've actually gained some ground since then. And so actually our index levels are going lower, because they're not selling as high as they were in your mid to late week sales last week. So as we get into our Tuesday, Wednesday sales, we're likely to be closer to steady to $1 or $2 lower, because they'll be comparing back to last Tuesday. But Oklahoma National Stockyards, Oklahoma City, big run, 16,300 head. Love to see a big run in the city. I tell you what, that's still our nation's feeder cattle market on a Monday, and everybody across the country wants to know what Oklahoma City's doing, because they set the pace for the rest of the week. But compared to 2 weeks ago, feeders, steers, and heifers steady to $3 higher. And like I said, they probably weren't quite as high as some of our mid to late week sales last week, but that much higher than the 2 weeks ago. Steer calves were $2 to $5 lower. Heifer calves kind of unevenly steady. Joplin Regional Stockyards, big run there, 10,300 head there, all under roof in Joplin. The market on all classes of feeder and stocker cattle there were steady to $3 higher. You look at the individual quote out of Joplin, 140 head, 761 pound steers at Joplin Regional Stockyards, Carthage, Missouri, 137.75, pretty respected quote there. And don't forget, on this Thursday, the 4th, they've got a primetime video auction, and you can view and bid that video sale at dvauction.com, or go to Primetime Livestock Video, and you can go to the same console and view and bid that sale there too. But usually have that, I think, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon Central. But Thursday, this June the 4th here, Primetime Livestock Video Auction. Also want to mention another big video that's coming up here next week that kind of sets the tone for us early in the summer, and maybe even all the way out till fall. But the Corn Belt Classic, Superior's big late spring, early summer sale, is going to be next Thursday. And normally it's in Council Bluffs, Iowa, but with everything that's going on, they are going to have it live from Fort Worth at their home-based studios there, but expecting 45,000 there. And that big video will likely set the pace for our summer yearlings. We'll have another tall grass special here just a week or so after that, kind of the Flint Hills special. But it'll set the pace for a lot of these summer grass yearlings. You guys, when you get an opportunity to sell them, if things don't change much, you might want to take it. And I'm telling you guys that like to praise your cattle on those early videos, you might want to take it this time. Because this market that we're seeing right now, everybody's crying the blues because they're giving a bailout and they're telling everybody how bad it's been. The worst thing that we've seen is we're not getting a fair percentage of the retail beef market. That doesn't have anything to do with our cattle prices. They're really not that bad, guys, and they don't have any right to be as high or higher than what they are right now. So, you know, we've got a long, hot summer ahead of us, and those big cattle are going to be a burden on this market. And even though some people are saying that they think they may not be out there, well, where the hell did they go? They're out there. Just wait and see. Watch these weights go up. You know, if it's not head count, the weights add up to the same because it's all about tonnage. So you guys need to be paying attention to that. How about a couple big individual quotes? Tri-State Livestock, McCook, Nebraska, 58 steers, weighed 800 pounds, right on the button, 135.50. But a big quote out of one of my favorite sales there, Callaway Livestock Center, Kingdom City, Missouri, had a big run there near 4,500 head. That's an impressive run there. Jack Harrison sells 120 head, 911 pound steers through the ring there at Callaway for $127. And that's your feeder flash for Tuesday.